Hello, I am Fernanda Paiva Hitchhiking Stars. Welcome to my channel. And today is Friday, which is the day that I talk about the astrology of the week. So rather than talking about something connected with your chart, connected with how to interpret something, some personal transits going on there for you, we're going to talk about what is going on in the sky from Friday until next Friday as well. So we're sort of with the crescent. So the moon is growing, right? So we're going towards a full moon. So that's basically one of the key characteristics of this week as well. So remember that this is a channel about constructive astrology. We're not talking about fear-mongering. We're not talking about why everything is going wrong and is always going to be wrong because I have that Saturn somewhere. But we're looking into possibilities for growth, for manifesting the life that we want to have, right? We want that those juices, those creative juices going in our lives, right? And before we talk, I mean, the main characteristics again this week is a first quarter of the moon. So we're going to look at that. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to see the chart of the transits for this week. But before that, I want you to tell me in the comments, how is this week going for you? We had a Grand Cross, right? We had a Grand Cross or a T-square. I talked about it last week as well, involving Mars in Leo, Jupiter in Taurus, and Pluto in Aquarius as well. So there's a Mars Pluto in Aquarius opposition is square Jupiter in Taurus, picking up the lunar nodes as well. So I think it's a very charged energy. I definitely know how that's being manifesting in my life. Nothing necessarily in my private relationships, but I've had some like bizarre comments in my channel as well, in some of the videos I'm sharing. Some like unnecessarily negative and provoking and just plain weird, really, if you ask me. So it was interesting to look at that, and he had a lot of these sort of Aquarius, Pluto, Mars and Leo kind of feeling and flavor, you know, sort of like shaming some of my personal stories or some of my personal style of doing things. And well, if you don't like it, just move on to the next video, you know, you don't have to. But if there is a value that I really hold dear to myself, is authenticity, and this channel will always prioritize authenticity, and to be myself is a non-negotiable, I'm afraid. So if you have any kind of suggestion about how to be myself in a better way, then I'm not interested. Unless it's a constructive comment, okay? Like, I'm a Virgo, I'm very interested in actual constructive, you know, someone wrote to me to get a mic, and I got a mic on the day after it, and actually I love my mic. It's going really well with a new mic. Thank you very much for the suggestion. So let me know how these green crusts going for you. Like, what's happening to you? Where any arguments, any anger issues? How have you been expressing your Mars as well? Because that's definitely tied to your natal Mars as well. So whatever is happening in the sky in terms of the patterns, like the planetary movements and configurations, will definitely be bringing forward the message of your natal chart. So what we understand about Mars will be reflected in our natal charts. And then when we have a Grand Cross or a T-square like we're having right now with Pluto and Jupiter, then there's a connection with our issues, our personal issues, manifesting in our lives as well. So have a look at that. Have a look at your chart as well. And let me know how this configuration has been showing up in your life. What's been going on there for you? Any angry people coming in your life? Any nasty arguments? Or have you felt more energetic and, you know, more physical activity and exercises and things? Like, let me know. I'll be super curious. Like I said before, I believe astrology works as this sort of unique tapestry weaved into individual human stories. So your story, your life, you are very important in understanding astrology as a whole. So I love to know how individually these configurations manifest, and to see the variety of, you know, manifestations that we can see. So with all of that said, I'm going to move on to the astrology of this week. This video is definitely going to be a little bit shorter than most of my videos, because there isn't really that much. I mean, we're sort of like preparing ourselves. It isn't very much of a busy week this week. And what we're doing is that we're preparing ourselves to go into full moon mode. And the interesting thing as well is that this full moon is in Gemini Sagittarius. So, excuse me. So the full moon will be in Sagittarius. When we have a full moon and bringing the Gemini and the Sagittarius to the forefront, there's usually this sort of information, the sort of emphasis on information and sharing information, coming across information, communication as well, the speaking up and so on. So there's something connected with this more intellectual side. And I think this week we'll also have that characteristic, because so here we still have that Mars. Look, that's the chart, you know, and the transits for today, for right now, pretty much. And we still have that Mars very much within orb in opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, and that square to Jupiter in Taurus as well. So that's still strong. It's still happening. We're still learning about assertion, learning about how to express ourselves individually in an authentic way, but without necessarily, you know, learn how to pick our fights. I think this is a good one. This is an important one for this week as well. Pick your fights. Don't waste your energy with unnecessary arguments, unnecessary, you know, because you're just going to waste valuable, resourceful energy there. So learn to pick your battles. That's one of the key words for that. But the first quarter of the moon, here we are, the exact first quarter will be tomorrow, the 27th of May, and we have Moon 6 degrees Virgo, Saturn 6 degrees Pisces, and the Sun at 6 degrees Gemini. So they're all like forming a square in opposition to each other. So I thought this is a fascinating aspect here, because it's a kind of reflection, a sense of being busy, or beginning to get busy with something that we've been thinking about, we've been considering for a while, especially during the Mercury retrograde as well. So we were like rethinking, reassessing, gaining a new perspective somehow on something that we wanted to do. Also, especially because the ruler of the sun and the ruler of the moon is Mercury. So again, I think this first quarter is relating back to that Mercury retrograde. So think back on those 3 weeks that Mercury was going retrograde. What were you rethinking? What was the situation that you were kind of reconsidering? Because now with this first quarter during this week, you can kind of kickstart, you can kind of take action. I think the first quarter of the moon is really connected with the action taking. So we can take action, we can get busy, we can start this, you know, implementing some of these ideas, implementing some of these thoughts that we had, some of these visions that we created during that Mercury retrograde. So we can do that. Again, Mercury's in Taurus. So we're talking about things that we're doing that are aligned with our values. We're still thinking about our values. We're still considering our values very much. And knowing your core values, you know, I shared like one of my core main values is authenticity. There's no way I can be something else other than myself. And it's something that I won't compromise. So know which one is for you. What are your core values? You know, integrity is another big one for me. You know, walk your talk and really implement in your life what you're talking about. So, you know, find out what your core set of values are, so you can decide what kind of action you can take this week. Small actions, you know, we're talking about Mercury, so it doesn't have to be anything big, you know, although Mars is in square to Jupiter and could be a big action as well. But with the Virgo and the Gemini there in the first quarter, we're talking about small implementations there, the small steps towards something that will become clearer when we have the full moon on the 4th of June. And I'll talk about the full moon next Friday because it will be closer then. But it's interesting. This is about, and I realize how much I say interesting rewatching my videos. I need to say some other words as well. So this is fascinating. Yeah, so enlightening. Another one as well with this first quarter of the moon is the opposition or the square with Saturn as well. So Saturn is definitely a very tight part of this first quarter. So not only taking steps and making, I'm just checking if my mic's still on, if I touched it by mistake. So anyhow, these actions and these implementations, they need to be slow, Saturn, serious, disciplined. You know, we need to add the Saturn element into creating our dreams. They're into implementing these things based on our values that we're talking about here. So it needs to be slow, it needs to be serious, it needs to be disciplined, and we're not talking about fast and furious here, like do something really quick that will burn out and you're not going to be able to sustain it. So think about the things you want to start taking action, that you want to start implementing in your life, but that you want it for the long haul. Okay, that's starting to sort of reflection, that need to create something that is for the long haul, slow and steady, strong foundations. Okay, this is like the main kind of message that I get from these planetary configurations here that we have this week. So ponder on what it is that you want to kind of begin to take action this week and put into practice, about putting into practice. All right. And for the rest of the week, really, I mean, we have obviously moon shifting signs and Mars opposition Pluto sort of waning. So we're going to begin to have a little bit more perspective about the whole anger and the whole, like, how can I express myself more creatively and not, step on other people's toes, and like, still be part of a group with that Pluto in Aquarius. But in terms of the positions this week, I think this is the most, the one that's really under the spotlight, really, is that, we have Jupiter conjunction North Node as well. So that's definitely a sort of a potential opportunities here. This is Tuesday, 30th of May. So potential situations where we could grow spiritually there as well, because that's how I interpret the North Node as well. With Jupiter being a conjunction to the North Node, it could be some kind of, disguised opportunity. Don't turn down opportunities during this week, because they could be disguised as something very small, or something that, isn't as big as it might end up being. But that could be some very cool opportunities during this week with that Jupiter North Node. And I think this is it. These are the major aspects that I wanted to talk about during this week. We have Moon moving to Scorpio as well on Thursday. So, intense emotions and the mood might shift drastically when we have that shift. But like I said before, Moon is like passing moods. I don't like to focus so much on that movement, of the moon. But the moon on Thursday, the interesting thing about Thursday, the 1st of June, is that with the moon moving to Scorpio, it might reactivate some of the issues of that T-square with Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter. So pay attention there, see if something comes up. That's something that we can also talk about this week. And that's it. This is Friday. I'm not going to talk about Friday because I will be back next Friday to talk about it. We will have the full moon on the following week. So like I said, this week now is a preparation, is a sort of an action taking connected with the combination of the full moon. So pay attention. I think the best thing about knowing astrology is not to be paranoid and to be calculating every single movement, or become overly dependent on astrology, but to sort of like navigate with it. So if we know this is the stage of that cycle, how can you best use this energy? How can you best align yourself with that sense of cycle? So choose something to do this week that you want to see developing further with the combination of the full moon as well. And something mercurial, you saw how Mercury will be ruling the moon and the sun as well on that square. So do something aligned with your values, again, very, very important, but something mercurial, something intellectual, something of an exchange or communication based, or anything to do with that. So this is it. This is my video for this Friday. Let me know what's going on for you, how you're feeling, and also please, really open to suggestions of what you'd like to see me talking about next. I'm doing like 2 videos a week. I'm experimenting with that. And Fridays are about the sky and how the transits are in the sky, but the other days I can be talking about natal planets, I can be talking about synastry, I can be talking about just about anything if I know about it. I promise. If I don't know, I would never try to pretend I do. This is the good side of authenticity, I guess. But let me know what you're interested in, and I'll share more information with you about it. All right. So I'll be seeing you next week. Have a wonderful weekend. And until then,